You are listening to the Taps and Teas Show, weekly conversations for people passionate about marketing, golf, and craft beer. Marty is the co-founder of Bad Rhino, an award-winning digital marketing agency helping golf and craft beer brands get real results in social media marketing. Here is your host, Marty McDonald.
On this episode of Taps and Teas, we're going to talk about why modernizing may not be the answer. So what the heck does that mean, Marty? Well, sometimes social media or the internet marketing or SEO, PPC, social media, email, internet marketing, all those buzzwords that come out, sometimes modernizing isn't the answer. So going through all that and all that muck is where most small businesses, craft breweries, golf courses, anybody that calls us, honestly, they always talk like, all right, we need to improve this, we need to improve that. And it's usually technical in nature. So it involves a computer, the internet. That's what we're going to define technical. You need to have some know-how. And a lot of these businesses are been in business for a long time. And the example I'm going to use here is a dentist office that was about 2 years ago. It was about the 2016. And Dr. Robert invited me in, and he had got my name from somewhere and said, I heard a lot of good things about Bad Rhino, and I'm coming to you from a friend of mine who had worked with me previously and had said, I need some help. And his whole goal was he had 4 offices in his practice rather. And he was looking to create a new website, have a whole new social presence, have email campaigns, everything set up. And I was like, wow, this sounds like a perfect project. And I said, well, why are you looking for this? And he was like, well, 2 reasons. The first one is I have an exit plan of about 7 years to get out of my practice. And I've been around for a while. I think it was about 20 years, 22 years, I think to be exact. And he's like, I would like to retire before I'm 60. And I want to sell everything off. And I was like, well, this is fascinating because this is like right in our wheelhouse. This is exciting. It's a long-term project. You're not looking at this short-term, like I need leads, I need this. And he goes, well, it's funny you say that because the second part of this is I have one practice or one office in my practice that's flailing a little bit. And I forget the numbers. We'll just use clean numbers. Everyone was at like $500,000 a year, and this one was at $300,000. We'll just keep it like that. And he was like, I need to get this other one up to snuff before I really start to package this up and start to think about how I can sell this or start entertaining somebody taking over my practice. So we went through everything. We started looking at what he thought was a great website, what he thought was going to be good to have his voice and his ideas and his concepts portrayed in the dentistry out there in the marketplace, not only on the internet, but then on social media. And we started pulling all these things apart. And finally, I stopped to Dr. Robert. I said, before we go into this, let me ask you a question. How are the other ones at $500,000 and this one's only at $300,000? And he's like, oh, I don't know. He's like, this is the last one that I bought and put into my practice. And we changed a bunch of things. And I said, well, did you ever market for that location? And he goes, no. And I go, well, how did you get the other ones to the numbers that you wanted? And he's like, well, I'd run an ad in this local magazine. And I said, okay, well, where this one is, hyper-targeted magazines. They were just going out to a very specific demographic. He did cosmetic dentistry, so it's a very, very high-end service. And he tailored those ads to go to those people in that target market. And I said to him, Dr. Robert, I'm like, maybe we should just take this and why don't you get this one up? And if there's a magazine that speaks to this area within the mile radius, let's just do that. And he stopped dead in his tracks. And it was funny because so many times I enter into these conversations and I'm expecting like, oh, Facebook doesn't work. And I don't really care about Instagram or Twitter. And I don't really understand this, but I know we need it. But how are you going to make it work? What are you going to do? And blah, 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 all the kind of crazy questions that you get. That's where I was expecting the whole conversation was heading. And he was so gung-ho on, let's do this, let's do that. I was excited. I was like, I lost sight of, this is awesome. I'm like, we should close this and we can get started in the next couple of weeks and let's rock and roll. But the weird part was talking to him about like, here's a print magazine that you could put into and why don't we run ads there? And he just looked at me and he's like, you're the 4th person that I've had in here and you're the only person that brought this up. He's like, I was struggling with the other 3 because they were talking about all this stuff about how the website was going to look and how everything was going to flow and what they were going to do for SEO and PPC and an email campaign, social media marketing, so on and so on. He's like, nobody ever asked me that. And Dr. Robert was like, well, this is pretty interesting in the fact that, yes, there's a magazine that we could probably advertise and get this office, where it needs to be and the money invested. And I said to him, I think that's a better option for you. And I said, well, what else have you done? And he was like, well, we used to do direct mail back in the day. I'm like, do you have, did it work for you first off? And he was like, yeah. So he's like, worked really well. I was like, well, do you have the ad copy? So we sat there for about 15 minutes and his assistant actually pulled out this whole file and he had all this old, it looked ancient, sometimes when you see stuff from the 80s, 90s, and even the previous dentist that owned the practice had some stuff in there. And I said, yeah, he's like, I built this off of here. I'm like, well, this stuff still works. We can put this together. I'm like, I have partners that can do this for you. And, it might be a better thing if you know what your numbers are. And he actually pulled out there's one that was an old yellow tablet, that had numbers on there. I think it was from 1989. And then there's a spreadsheet printout from 1998. And it had the numbers on there. And I said, well, this would be pretty consistent. And he's like, well, I said, when was the last time you ran an ad that was similar to this? And we started pulling everything out. And here he was, trying to modernize his entire practice in marketing because he felt he needed it. Now, I will say this, he needs some of it. He needed some of it, but not everything that he was looking to do because he wanted to grow that one office in his practice.
Hey, if you're enjoying what you're hearing on the show and want more, head on over to tapsandtees.info and get our free report with game-changing tips and strategies straight to your inbox. Just enter your info and stop being stuck with no marketing plan.
We just sat there for a good 20 minutes afterwards, just talking about, what he could do. And that's what he wound up doing. He wound up sending out a postcard campaign, wound up doing an ad in one of the high-end magazines to reach the demographic in the neighborhoods that he wanted to. And he did. He got the office in his practice up to where the levels where everybody else was. And then we started to work on all the other pieces. And it was a great source of referrals for us because it was the first time for him that somebody didn't try and sell him on something. And I think a lot of companies, small and large, don't go back to the basics enough. I love internet marketing, and I love social media, and I love everything that the internet and mobile phones can do for a business. And I love helping businesses realize that potential. And our team here at Bad Rhino absolutely focuses in on maximizing the effort to get you the most ROI. But the one thing is, a lot of times you don't take a step back and wonder how you got here. When I walk into a potential relationship and ask them what's currently working in your marketing, most of the time they don't know. And they'll say something like word of mouth. That's how I get all my business is word of mouth. Well, that's great. But you've never done any marketing? No. Okay, well then how do you track word of mouth? I don't. So you're starting from zero. But it doesn't mean that you need the world's fanciest website and the best social media pieces out there. And we need to create, $40,000 content pieces and production costs. You can start off a little bit smaller once you see what it can do, but you also need to take a look at what's worked. How did you get to this point? Especially if you've been in business for 10, 15, 20 years and you're looking to change things up. But even when you're first starting out, it might have been, we did this mailer, we did this, we did that. So Dr. Robert and I, we sat around for, a good portion of our next meeting and just hammered that out. And the one piece of feedback that I took from it in terms of modernizing or not modernizing was, you don't want to drag somebody into this, and you don't want to necessarily drag your own business into it until you're ready. And you should be ready. It's 2018. Dr. Robert needed a lot of those things, but he also needed them more to support his business and make it appear bigger than it was. So modernizing isn't necessarily an answer. If you're sitting there and you're listening to this podcast and you're at an older golf course and you've been around and you have your regulars coming in, but you want to reach a few more people and the old stuff isn't working, take a look at the old stuff. Take a look at what you used to do and take that. And that's your start for your social media campaign. That's your start for your internet marketing campaign. That's the basis of some of the things you could put on a website or a different pay-per-click ad. So modernizing isn't always the answer and going with every single bell and whistle. And at the same time, for us, worked out to be a lot of credibility, because that's how I sell and that's how we work. Is we want to work with clients that we want to help them understand how they could be the best in their marketing. And if we're not quite a fit, we're going to refer them to something else, or we're going to tell them, say, why don't we run that postcard campaign you did 2 years ago? Let's see if that works again. Nothing's a silver bullet, but modernizing sometimes isn't the right answer depending on where your business is and what you're doing with that. So just a little story, for that. And that's one of the reasons I wrote my book, and that's coming up in the next episode of Taps and Teas. I wanted to get something out there that would share more about my philosophy in terms of social media and our agency and how we've been doing things and our approach to clients. So look forward to speaking with you, and I hope this episode helps out in your marketing, and I'll see you on the next episode of Taps and Teas.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.